Hey guys, so when I started my YouTube channel and started making videos, I'd already had William, and I just started making videos because all of our family, or not all of it, but a lot of Tim's family and a lot of my family live out of town or travel out of town for work. So I just started making, videos so that they would have a way to see William. And I still use, that's what I do with this channel. But I also found after I started making videos that there's this wonderful, great community for moms, for people that are trying to conceive, and just all this stuff. And when I was trying to conceive William, I had no idea that there was such a great community out there, and I really wish I had, because I feel like it maybe would have been a little easier with the situation we were in and stuff, because this is a story I haven't really talked about with anybody, even in my personal family. Only a few people know about it. Excuse me. It's just a really hard subject for me to talk about, but I'm just going to start at the beginning. I think it'll be a little bit easier to talk to a camera, so. So, Tim and I got married in August of 2007. We decided that December that we wanted to start trying to have a baby. And so we started trying in December, and we got pregnant right away. The very first month we tried, I got pregnant. So I was so excited. I thought it was just great, we got pregnant the first try and everything. So I had never really been around anyone that had had a miscarriage, or I'd never really had to deal with that. So as soon as we got pregnant, I told my entire family, and I told my friends. And at the time I worked at a place where I had to lift a lot of heavy stuff, so I had to tell my job. So we were just so excited, and everything was going great. And then one day while I was at work, I went to the bathroom and I was bleeding, and it was pretty bad. So I freaked out. I didn't know what to do, so I went to the emergency room. And when I got to the emergency room, they checked me out and said that my cervix was still closed, and that, well, first they told me that I was 7 weeks pregnant, 6 or 7 weeks pregnant, and that my cervix was still closed, and I hadn't had a miscarriage. And that it was so early that the only thing I could really do, there wasn't really anything I could do. What was going to happen would happen. So I went home. I quit bleeding. So I was really worried about it, but I was like, okay, maybe it was just some freak thing. And at this point, I hadn't had my first OB appointment yet. I had made an appointment, but they couldn't get me in for several weeks. So I wasn't scheduled to go in for my first appointment until 2 weeks later. So I don't bleed any for the next week. And then right before I was scheduled to go in for my first appointment, I started bleeding really bad again. So when I went in, the day that I went in to have my first appointment, I had been bleeding for about 2 days. And when I got there, I'm sitting at the nurse's station, and she's asking me all these questions, and I tell her that I'm bleeding. And she then asked me when my last period was. So I go into all this detail, and pretty much after that, I'm not going to go into all the details, but they treated me like I was just crazy, and that I'd never been pregnant to begin with, and that I was just having my period. And that whole situation was really bad. It was a horrible doctor's office. I went in, they gave me a pregnancy test. I didn't have, it came back negative, so they told me, you know, if you were pregnant at all, you've miscarried. So, but I knew, I'd been to the emergency room, and I told them that, you know, I'd already been to the emergency room. They had confirmed that I was pregnant. But anyways, long story short, I found out for sure that I'd had the miscarriage that day. And they scheduled me to come back after I'd quit bleeding to schedule to see if I needed to have a D&C done. So that was that was a really hard day in my life. It was just, I was so devastated, and then the way that I'd been treated by the nurses, it was just a bad experience altogether. And then to make matters worse, when I went back for my checkup to see if I needed to have a D&C done, they bring me in, and when they weigh me, they're like, "Oh, you've lost a little weight." And I was like, "Yeah," you know, I didn't think anything about it. And they're like, "Well, here, will you pee in this cup for us?" So I pee in the cup, and I'm still like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "Oh, could you go into the doctor's, the room and wait? The doctor will come in and see you in a minute." So I go in there, and it starts clicking that they don't realize that I've had a miscarriage. They still think that I'm pregnant and I'm coming in. Anyways, the doctor comes in, and he's trying to break it to me. I can tell he's a little uncomfortable and trying to tell me that I've had a miscarriage. And I was like, I found that out the last time I was here. You guys are supposed to be, you know, shouldn't that be something you write in big red letters in a lady's chart, that she has lost a child? I mean, do I have to go through this again? So that made it even worse. I had to live through it all over again. And it was just it was a horrible doctor's office. I didn't like it. So I didn't have to have a D&C done. I went home, and it was just a really bad time for me. I was really upset at the loss. Tim really helped me through it a lot. He, you know, was there for me and made me feel better, but it was still really, really hard. Like a month, not even a month after I had the miscarriage, I hadn't even stopped bleeding very good, and I started having these horrible pains. Like in my ovaries, I was just having the worst pains. So why I went back to that same doctor, I don't know. Stupid mistake anyways. But so I go back, same doctor that I've dealt with all of this other crap, and I go in and I'm like, something's wrong. Something is not right down there. I'm having these horrible pains. So he brings me in. He puts on a glove, and he does the 2-finger exam. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. And he's in there a total of 2 minutes, and he's like, "Oh, you've got an infection. Probably the miscarriage, something happened, and it caused you to get an infection." Well, he's a doctor, so I just assumed he knew what he was doing and didn't question him. He put me on some antibiotics and sent me home. So I started taking antibiotics. Nothing helped. it just seemed to be getting worse and worse and worse. It was like the worst pain I'd ever felt. I thought, for a little bit, I thought I was dying. Like, I thought something was really, really bad wrong, and that I was dying. And I hurt like this for about a month and a half, maybe 2 months. And my husband, one Saturday, I was hurting so bad, I was just squalling, and I could barely stand up straight. So my husband was like, I'm taking you to the emergency room. So he took me to the emergency room, and they did, I can't remember what they did, ultrasound or x-ray or something, but they found out that I had a really big cyst on one of my ovaries that was just really big. Oh, no, I forgot to mention, before I went to the emergency room, I had went back to that same doctor, and I told him, you know, the antibiotics didn't work. And instead of doing an ultrasound or x-ray like they did at the emergency room, this crazy guy's like, okay, well, I would like to set up an appointment to do, he called it exploratory surgery. And what he wanted to do was cut a little hole in my belly button and go in there and see what he could find, if anything was wrong. I know that sounds insane. I thought the same thing. Finally, I decided not to go back to that guy, and that's when my husband took me to the emergency room after that. But anyways, they found out it was a cyst. They were gonna, that was a Saturday. They had said if it didn't, they said it could burst on its own and be fine, or if it didn't, that they would have to do surgery to remove it. So I was supposed to go back Monday and go find, you know, an OBGYN, since I was not going to go back to the quack doctor anymore. But I was at work one day, and just all of a sudden I had this really sharp pain, and then it was gone. Like, the pain that I'd been having for several months just went away. So it kind of took care of itself on its own. So just with all the pain from the cyst I had and being depressed from my miscarriage, I had started gaining weight. And I gained a pretty good bit of weight from the time I had my miscarriage till I actually conceived William. But it was like my body never went back to normal after I had the miscarriage. Because before I could eat whatever I want to or anything. But anyways, that's a different story.